On this episode of Missouri Life, we're on the main street of America, where we dive into the fiber arts with the help of some alpacas, meet a man whose oratory skills helped him cross racial lines, and go nuts for donuts at a local hotspot. All that and more coming up next on Missouri Life. Production support is provided by Missouri Life magazine and by viewers like you. Thank you. Welcome to another episode of Missouri Life. I'm your host, Meredith Haynes. Thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery. From the trails of the Wyoda and the Osage to the wire road of the Civil War, from the St. Louis-San Francisco Railroad to Route 66, there has always been a road through Lebanon, Missouri. Since the official designation of Route 66 was assigned in 1926, it didn't take long for the town to become a busy stop for wary road trippers. Early lodging offered in Lebanon's original 5 miles of road were tent camps, cabin courts, and tourist homes, like the Lens Home Motel. It's a combination of the words home and motel. It opened in 1932. Let's get our journey of discovery underway and find out what makes Lebanon proud. We're sitting with Ramona Lehman. She's the owner of the Munger Moss Motel, which is part of the Route 66 legacy here in Lebanon, Missouri. This was, you say, always meant to be.
Mm-hmm. Predestination. Bob and I got married back in 1957. We went to St. Louis on our honeymoon, and we spent our couple days in the King Brothers Motel on Route 66, and then we took off for home, and there was a big snow blizzard going on, and that's the beginning of our life.
After many years of farming and selling feed into Iowa, it was in fact a blizzard that gave the Lehmans the push they needed to finally move south and pursue their dreams of owning a hotel, bringing their lives full circle and back to historic Route 66.
Munger Moss originates down by Devil's Elbow. Mr. and Mrs. H.P. Munger had a fishing resort about, maybe 2-3 miles north of Devil's Elbow on the Big Piney River. He died already in 1930. She went down the river to Devil's Elbow and opened up a sandwich shop. Met and married Emmett Moss, and they ran that. Then comes Second World War, and they start building Fort Leonard Wood. Mm-hmm. There's a 4-lane through there now, but the original road was north of that, and the road went like this and up a hill like this and like that. And it took all day for a truck with an airplane on it to get through that. So they dynamited and hauled off a whole hills and stuff like that and made a 4-lane stretch through there so that they could do that. Devil's Elbow, when they opened that up, it just sort of died. So Pete and Jesse was there, and they bought the name and the recipe from Nellie and Emmett Munger Moss. And then they came here and bought this land. Route 66, according to my abstract, had to condemn the land to get the land to build the road. There was a restaurant up here called Chicken Shanty, and they sold it to Pete. Now, Pete's story is, he loved to gamble. He was down the boot hill, shooting craps. And he said the guy had crooked dice. So he sent his buddy out to get his dice, and he switched them. And he ended up winning, I think, $12,000 or $13,000 and a Packard automobile, and then he come up here and bought this place. So see, that's part of the history here too.
So he starts building the motel,
and
which also has a little bit of a crooked path.
Well, it's still rationing days. I mean, you know, the war is not over. It's 1945 when he comes here. And he said that he had to buy black market lumber to build this. You just couldn't go to the store and buy it. So anyhow, the feds would come around and look for him, and he'd hide. And then at night, he'd always come and tell the boys what to do the next day and pay them, and then that's how it got built.
So it itself made a tour down Route 66.
Yeah.
Do you keep track somewhere of all the places that people have come from to visit?
I should have done that when I started, but I never did, so I never have. But I've got one room, that's my special Route 66 room, and there's a book in there. So when anybody stays in that room, they write me a note. So I've got lots of notes and stuff like that from all over different places.
Do you miss, because when you guys were here, Route 66 was still traveled as Route 66.
But it was traveled on the interstate, not on the Route 66 per se as such. But, and I knew I was on 66 always. But it didn't have the nostalgia till they took all the signs down, and then everybody was looking for it, and then it was like trying to find your lover again or something like that. Because Route 66 is romance, it's nostalgia, it's the slow pace of life.
Hatcheries were once a staple in almost every community, but with innovations in cold storage and migration to urban areas, the number of hatcheries dwindled. Cackle Hatchery was no exception.
The business was pretty much dying out in the late 50s, and my granddad was about ready to just quit. He called my mom and dad, said, hey, I know you guys talked about, working in the hatchery. If you want to make a go of it, why don't you come back? And he said, get into some rare breeds, more rare breeds. That might be where the trend is for the future. That might help build the business. So we're one of the few surviving hobby hatcheries left in the United States. We hatch about 200 different breeds that you might use for show or backyard fun, for pets, or if you want a few laying hens, or if you want a few butchering chickens. So it's the individual that wants 3 ducks for their pond, or they want some bantams to show in their 4-H project, or they want 15 laying hens to have eggs for the table. And those orders can be anywhere from 3 baby chicks up to a couple hundred typically. Then on the wholesale end, we have about 1,600 feed stores or farm and ranch stores where they'll have baby chicks in their store that they actually have all the time for customers to come in and buy. We provide those birds to those entities. We have a couple of .com companies too that we fulfill some of their orders for also. So that's kind of our market. They're housed in our egg room, so we get that all organized, set up. They've got to be set at the right time so they hatch off at the right time, so we make sure all the process works. So they go into incubators, and then like chickens take 21 days to hatch out. So on the 19th day, we transfer those eggs into a hatcher, which takes them out of the tray. They're not being turned anymore. They're in a flat tray where they're laid out, where they can go ahead and start pipping and break out the egg. So then basically on hatch day, it's pulling those chicks out, grading them, getting them up to the sexers so they can sex them, and getting them through the shipping process. We use the United States Post Office. We use a priority live postage. So typically they get there within 2 to 3 days. Now when a baby chick is hatched out, they have about 72 hours worth of egg yolk still in their system. Their immune system's kind of heightened, so they can take some stress, a little bit, but maybe not quite the warmth or the coolness that they need, so they can withstand that. That process is to get them out real quick, grade through them, get everything set up so the shippers can come right in, get to the orders, get everything packaged right. We have boxes specially made. We have like 10 different types of boxes for shipping. We have different nesting things that we can do. Basically, I get on and look at the weather patterns to see where everything's going. We do a map where we have a north-south region, we have a hot region or a cold region. Then we have some instructions that tell them what to do if they're shipping to that area. That helps us overall with our shipping experience, trying to give the chicks the right packing so that they're comfortable and warm, not getting too much humidity and not getting too dried out, have enough warmth, enough ventilation. It's kind of a difficult situation though, because on a hatch day, it's a hatch and ship day. So it's very time consuming to put up all these little orders and get everything through the system. So if I've got 1,200 orders that day and they all want 2 ducks and they want a goose or a trio of geese, 5 bantams, maybe a couple of guineas. So then you got to gather all this stuff up, make sure it's packed right. Back, 40 years ago or 30 years ago, our orders were like 100 Rhode Island red pullets or 100 Cornish cross. That was easy to put up. Had a box of 100, tape it, off it goes. So it's a little bit more time consuming. So during our season, we're working 24/7. Someone's up here working on a shift with that process to make sure it happens. It's not a perfect science, but we do a pretty good job of getting our baby chicks to the post office.
Once a Lebanon High School Yellow Jacket, lettering in football, wrestling, and track, Justin Britt went on to play football for the Mizzou Tigers before being drafted by the Seattle Seahawks. Born to former slaves just north of Lebanon, Missouri, William Tecumseh Vernon went on to become an accomplished educator, orator, author, bishop, university president, and registrar of the United States Treasury.
Bishop Vernon was a person who was a member of the first post-generation of African Americans since the abolition of chattel slavery. And the significance of his life achievements is that he was obviously one who represented that group, the first group after emancipation, who was able to successfully challenge and overcome and achieve under the new avenues of freedom that was created. And one of the main values, of course, was a means of achievement was through formal education, and his life experiences illustrate that.
At the age of 15, William went on to attend what is now Lincoln University, graduated valedictorian and class orator before going on to attend the very prestigious Wilberforce University in Ohio. And by the age of 25, he was named president of Western University in Quindaro, Kansas.
During his tenure, he expanded the university's enrollment from 25 to about 400 students. And actually, he followed into the footsteps of Booker T. Washington with his theories on industrial education,
which taught all of the mechanics, all the domestic sciences, which blacks, did not have the opportunity to go into a lot of professions, so housekeeping and sewing and all of that. But then they had the curriculum. The educational curriculum was as rigid as the curriculum at University of Kansas, and the school just ballooned.
In addition to education, William and his family also valued religion and were members of the prestigious African Methodist Episcopal Church, with a foundation dating back to the Free African Society, established in 1787. The AME Church was not just a theological institution, it was a powerful social and political organization.
And the AME Church, right after the Civil War, began expanding into what we would call some of the ex-slave states. And the Missouri and the Kansas area, they began moving into actively after the Civil War. And he was one of those that was identified, was obviously was baptized in the church and became a leader in it.
The requirements that you had to become an elder in the AME Church was highly, highly regarded. At that time and early on, blacks could not enter very few of the professions. There were a few doctors, and so the ministry and the school teaching attracted the highest caliber that you could find in black communities across the country.
We know that Vernon was politically connected, and he actually crossed the color lines a lot of times making presentations and speeches, especially to Republican organizations. A lot of African Americans were Republican at the time because of the party of Lincoln, and because he was really politically connected, especially to the Republican Party, that led to him eventually becoming the registrar of the United States Treasurer. And so his signature does appear on the United States currency from 1906 until 1912.
And his life achievements, I think, demonstrate that African Americans were intellectually capable. They also had the skills and the energy and the know-how in order to achieve in fields of education as well as in politics. And his life clearly demonstrates that.
What was your childhood dream? Remember swinging as high as you could, hoping to touch the stars? Well, Michael S. Hopkins fulfilled that dream when he became a NASA astronaut in 2009. With 166 days in space, his time on the International Space Station included 2 spacewalks, totaling 12 hours and 58 minutes.
Now we're here at Wayner's Bakery in downtown Lebanon, where making donuts is a time-honored family tradition.
Grandpa moved from the St. John area to the Lebanon area, and he did it for 11 years. My dad took over from him, bought it from him, did it for 31 years, and then I've done it now for almost 14 years. So we started here in 1963. Before that, Grandpa had a bakery in Festus, Missouri, and before him there were people, and they just kept on rolling. The recipes kept on passing. Cream horns, cakes, everything's from scratch. No mixes, no frozen thaw bake stuff. My grandpa will strike me down if I get a frozen thaw and bake off thing. So I keep it scratch, and that's all we know, so it's what we do.
So tell us about these cream horns, because you're famous for these.
They're an interesting thing. If you can make them right, they're really good. And it's one of them things that you have to make it 1,000 times before you can make it perfect for me. Like if I mess them up, they would still sell and they would be okay, but they wouldn't be. I want them. These aren't like the 5-pack you buy at the store. I thought in college those cream horns were all the same, so I went and bought a 5-pack. Well, I threw away 4 1/2, and I called my dad and I said, "Can you send them in the mail?" And he said, "I don't know, we'll try." So that's when we started shipping cream horns, and now they ship everywhere.
Tell us a little bit about that process, how donuts are made, and some of the other stuff that you're doing back there.
Coming about 8 o'clock at night, and I try to get done before the sun comes up. And we make it at nighttime just so it can be freshest for the morning. I would like to get it done out here by 4 o'clock because we open at 4:30, so everything would be just perfect for people. But start with all your dry ingredients, your crack eggs, yeast. I use the wet yeast. Put it all in a bowl, mix it up, and let it set until it rises to where your perfect dough rises. Punch it down, put it on the table, let it set for 15, 20 minutes, half hour. Roll it out, chop it, proof it, fry it, and eat it.
You guys are open 4:30 to 4:30, and I mean, you have a steady line of people. I mean, a lot of donut places and bakeries, they kind of cut off about 11 o'clock, noon, and I mean, you had people coming in all day.
It depends on the day. Some days they can wipe me out before 7 o'clock in the morning. But then some days, 4:30, we've got it all left over. You just never know, and we try to, cater to everybody. People like to come in after work and pick up a cake, so we don't want to miss that opportunity of selling a cake. And a lot of people know how much, like they've got their change counted out and ready to hand to her before, so they all know how much their chocolate milk and a Long John's going to cost. And
they were talking about, oh, how's your boy doing? Is he still dating that girl? How's your garden and stuff. So that's really cool that you're that connected to the community and the people here.
It seems like everybody knows about us, and if they haven't known about us, when they try us, they keep coming back. 54 years we've been here, so I advertised once, and I guess I really didn't need to, and my dad told me you don't need to, and people talk and they like it. We shut down for a week, and they get upset. At first I didn't really think of it, but now that I've done it for a while, people know where this place is, and they come. The people that have met my grandpa, now I meet older people, and they come in, they say they talked to my grandpa when he was, back here working, and they would solve life problems. And people I meet that used to come back in here and talk to my dad at nighttime, and just the cops that would come in at nighttime, and The longer I do it, the more I figure out that this is kind of big.
Sally's Folly was written and brought to the stage in 1980 by American playwright Lanford Wilson. It was set in 1940s Lebanon, Missouri in a dilapidated boathouse. It's important to note that Wilson himself was born in Lebanon in 1937. The one-act play had no intermission, no set change, and won Lanford Wilson the Pulitzer Prize for drama. Located just east of Lebanon sits Whirlwind Ranch, an alpaca farm that has given its owner, Liz Michko, a creative outlet in the fiber arts.
Back in 1993, my mom discovered alpacas, and she talked me into it. And the rest, they say, is history. One unique thing about alpacas is that you have to shear them once a year, and they produce from 5 to 8 or plus pounds of fiber a year. And after a couple of years, my storage closet could not be opened, so I had to learn. And thus began my love of weaving, spinning, crocheting, and dyeing the fibers. Once we shear an alpaca, then we have to sort and grade the fiber, wash it, card it, which means put it all going in one direction, and then we either hand spin it or commercial spin it to make yarn. And then once we have yarn, the sky is the limit. We can pretty much do anything with it. The science behind dyeing, first you have to know what it is that you're dyeing. If it's a protein fiber, something that comes off of an animal, it takes one type of dye. If it's a plant fiber, it takes another type of dye. And so knowledge is power. Once you have all the basics, then the procedure is actually quite easy. The piece in front of me is, we've got both of our alpaca and a store-bought yarn, and we work them all together, make beautiful products. I am a weaver that I like to weave something I would wear if, in the event it doesn't sell. Although I'll have requests that somebody wants XYZ color combination or this length, or can you do this again but in these colors? So I do take a lot of special requests on weaving projects. Well, this is a rigid heddle loom, and it's named after this piece right here called a heddle, and it has slots and holes in it. So every other string is in a slot and every other one is in a hole, and when we move it up and down, it manipulates them up or down, and then we can pass the shuttle through the yarn, and then we go ahead and tamp it down. And this type of loom primarily is used for scarves and shawls because of the width restrictions of 24 inches. There are multiple floor looms that have more heddles that dictate types of design that can be used. I like this one for the portability standpoint of it when we go do demonstrations to the public. So this is the one I like because a lot of times I get stopped in the middle of doing something and it's easy to pick back up and not ruin your work in progress. I get the most enjoyment on what I term free weaving. No patterns, no counting, just weave whatever colors I want. And it's a combination of rigid heddle weaving and tapestry weaving combined. So there are no things as a straight line. In other words, you can drink a margarita and weave at the same time and enjoy yourself.
In addition to selling her pieces, Liz also works hard to educate the public. She does that through her annual Fiber U conference, where fiber artists from 9 different states convene in Lebanon for classes, demonstrations, and a place to sell their wares. But Liz also invites the public to visit her Whirlwind Ranch, where she weaves more than just alpaca fiber.
Here we have an interactive fiber display where we have multiple samples of various different kinds of fibers. Other things that we've used are camel, silk, cotton, bamboo, plant fibers, but bison, sheep's wool, mohair, bunny rabbit, you name it. We have a lot of fiber friends in the industry after 24 years, and so a lot of us swap fibers and saying, hey, did you try this? Did you try that? And it's fun. Creativity is the best part of it.
Gushing more than 100 million gallons of water per day, Bennett Spring rises up from a cave and was once called the Eye of the Sacred One by Native Americans. Today, it is stocked with around 400,000 rainbow trout from the park's own hatchery. So as you can see, I am really ready to go fishing. But before we bring this episode to a close, we're going to take one more look at the magnificent beauty of Bennett Springs State Park. For everyone at KMOS TV, Missouri Life Magazine, and myself, thanks for watching. And tune in again next time to spark your spirit of discovery and experience Missouri life. More information is available on social media or online at kmos.org. Production support is provided by Missouri Life Magazine. Missouri Life Magazine explores and celebrates the people, places, history, and destinations that make our state unique. Subscription information for Missouri Life Magazine can be found online at missourilife.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you.